Om Shruti Shruti Purananam Alayam Karunalayam Namami Bhagavat Padam Shankaram Loka Shankaram Shankaram Shankaracharyam Keshavam Badarayanam Sutra Bhashya Kritau Vande Bhagavantau Punah Punah Ishvaro Gururatmeti Murti Bheda Vibhagine Vyomavat Vyapta Dehaya Dakshinamurtaye Namaha. Om Sahana Vavatu Sahanau Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karavavahai Tejasvinavaditamastu Ma Vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. The Upadesha of Yamadharmaraja as the teacher, Nachiketa, is what we are trying to study and understand. He is addressing two fundamental questions. Does something survive the fall of the Sharira? There is a lot of doubt, Nachiketa said. Dharmaraja agreed, yes, there is doubt. Not only among humans, even among devatas, there is doubt. Vichikitsa. And if such a thing is there, even more importantly, what is the nature of that vastu? So all the Upadesha you see, they are only talking about he clearly made it clear that there is something that survives Atma, that survives the Sharira. And the Upadesha really is trying to understand the nature, the Swarupa of that vastu. We have enough thinking and analytical capacity and enough input data from every religious book that something does survive the Sharira. I don't think there's any doubt anywhere about that. Logically also we can arrive at it. And if you take any text that also says the same thing, there's a difference in the way they see what happens to that. Hardly any one of them except Vedanta talks about the nature of that surviving vastu. But they all talk about the fact that something survives. So that part of the question of Nachiketa is relatively simple to answer. Yes, there is. It perpetuates. It carries forward the momentum. There is another Janma for the same thing in another Sharira. Enough evidence of that. Both, like I said, in the texts as well as by pure tarka, common sense logic. The second part of the question, what is the nature, what is the swarupa of this Atma, this vastu, is where difficulties in understanding come. Therefore, Shruti very kindly gives us several ways of trying to understand this. It tells you also the method by which you can understand it. So many places it says the process you follow is one, keep yourself ready to receive this knowledge. Understand this knowledge is unlike any other knowledge. What we generally refer to as jnanam and its viruddha ajnanam belong to jnanam of objects of the jagat. This jnanam we are talking about of that vastu that survives the Sharira is not like that at all. It has None of the senses have access to this. Not words, not mind. So many places Shruti will tell us, don't even expect to understand it because you think you have the capacity, your senses are wonderful, and your mind is very sharp. Therefore, you think you will understand, you will not understand. It is not accessible to them. Yato vacho nivartante aprapya, without gaining that knowledge, including the manas, manasa, it returns without gaining what it went out to gain. This is one thing one has to understand. Second part of it is that this being so different to knowledge, the person or the buddhi which is going to receive this knowledge and be able to assimilate it has to be readied. Therefore, in many places in the Shruti, it talks about adhikaritvam, which buddhi has been prepared adequately to receive and absorb this knowledge. Second part of it. And then the third part, which is probably the most difficult part, says this is the nature of this. It is sarvasya karanam. There is nothing other than this. It is ekam. It is advitiyam. And on top of all this, it is I. Tattvamasi. So where is the emphasis in the Upanishads? Certainly in some amount of emphasis on saying this knowledge is different. This is paravidya. It is not aparavidya. What is aparavidya? What is paravidya? Know the distinction. This is pretty easy to understand. The second part of it, many places, both in the Karma Kanda and in the Jnana Kanda, there's a lot of emphasis on how to gain that adhikaritvam. What is adhikaritvam and how to gain that adhikaritvam. In and through all this, Shraddha becomes extremely important. Because of the same factors we're talking about. Because the senses cannot give you the data for this. Therefore, you have to accept another pramana. And as in any pramana, you must have Shraddha. Eyes is a pramana. I hold it up and say, look at this black colored thing. One doesn't accept it immediately because the Guru is saying so. Because my pramana, my eye sees orange color. A pramana is one which you accept with Shraddha. Therefore, Shraddha becomes a foundation for this knowledge to be gained. Not accept blindly. Therefore, the Shraddha must be tempered with pariprashna, thinking, analysis, questioning, with a view to understand it. Therefore, here also Dharmaraja talks about the nature of this vastu that survives Sharira. And because it is so different from everything else we know, it is paravidya. And we are so conditioned to look at knowledge of objects that we are unable to really see that this is something different, and I cannot apply the same method that I apply for gaining knowledge of objects. People born into families where this is already established, are people who have done some punya before to be born, to be able to be born. Otherwise, what happens? Even if your own karma in the form of karma phala data has given a person extremely sharp brain, he is unable to transcend the idea of knowledge of objects. Stephen Hawking is an example. Probably considered one of the most brilliant minds ever. But he can't see this. For the life of him, he can't see anything other than objects. So there is punya to back one. And getting ready for this knowledge, even after all this, even after finding a guru who is able to teach this, a guru who is a Shrotriya Brahmanistha, that knowledge does not get assimilated as I. Not very easily. Therefore, Shruti tells us in different ways how to understand this nature of the Vastu called Brahman, called Atma as I. So it does present it in different ways. Whether it's the Bhagavad Gita or any of the Upanishads, it presents the same knowledge in many ways, hoping that one will click. One of the methods that this uses, a beautiful method, is to give us an imagery. An imagery where something we understand, something, the whole system in which Atma is presented as part of the system, or the system as part of Atma. You can understand this also. So we had in the Kathopanishad two very nice imageries. One of the Ratha, where we had Ratha Swami, how the whole thing is dependent on the Ratha Swami, and how that system tends to move away in the wrong direction. And the other, we saw, again, a very beautiful imagery of Puraswami. Having shown these, and having described the way it is described in all the various mantras, especially those where Dharmaraja says, Yetad Vaitat, this is indeed that. A very nice way of presenting the Atma Swarupa. Despite all that, we still have issues. It looks, when you are sitting in the class and listening to Yamadharmaraja explaining, it looks clear. But the pressures of the Jagat, it does not allow you to assimilate it. Puts enormous amount of stress on the understanding. This is our experience. We've also seen, all of us have seen this. We have to deal with the Jagat, whether you like it or not. As long as you're in the Jagat, you have to deal with the Jagat. Just like the fellow in the dream has to deal with everything in the dream. Whether it is a dream hunger or a dream danger to the physical sharira or any other part of the sharira, he has to deal with it. Therefore, one method this uses, like I said, is and imagery, like stories. When we want to explain something to children, one of the best things we can do is to tell them stories. And every story has in English we call it moral, but really thing is you understand what story is trying to tell us. Which is why the system in which grandparents have, or children have access to grandparents becomes extremely important. Parents, being grihasthas, are under enormous laukika pressure. They are under enormous laukika pressure and the pressure of bringing up the children in the way they think is right for them. They do not have the freedom to talk of this knowledge to children. It's amazing. I've seen Pujya Swamiji talk to children, 5, 6-year-old children, and talk about the way we talk about this. We think they will not understand. But somewhere it registers. They may not understand the full import at that time, but somewhere it registers. And what do grandparents do? Many of you have had that wonderful experience of being grandparents. They tell children stories. And our systems are full of these stories. Stories from the Puranas, stories from Panchatantra and Hitopadesha and so on. They register enough for them to grow up and figure out things much more readily, not get overly influenced by the material loka. In a sense, we are also like that. We are balas. We also need to understand. So Shruti tells us in different ways. I said one of the ways it uses is this kind of stories and imageries. And in this section, which is a repetition of what has been said earlier, there's nothing new that is being said, but it is being said in a way which is slightly different. Hoping that we will grasp what it's saying much more readily. And this is again a very beautiful imagery. Imagery of a tree, Ashwatha tree. And how do they do it? See, our experience in the Jagat is very simple. We know that if something is there, a result is there, there has to be a cause. It has come from somewhere, from some object. This is our experience. I remember when I was a child, I don't know who said this, probably the people in Ramakrishna Mission where I used to go very, very early in my life, that there's a beautiful painting. You look at that and you admire the painting. Even as a child, you admire the colors, you admire. So immediate question that comes to mind is, wow, but who made this? Who is the artist? And this was told to me when I was maybe 7 years old. It has never gone out of my mind. Whole painting is there. It looks beautiful. You see all these little things in the painting. And you say, wow, that artist must be really an artist. And the explanation was, you look at the world, you look at the beauty of the world, you look at the variety of the world, you look at the way the whole world interacts and interweaves with each other without destruction. Even the destruction is part of that. And say, who designed all this? Who made all this? Who created all this? That there has to be a karanam. We may not know the word karanam when we are children, but now we know that there has to be a karanam. This whole jagat, which is coming up, constantly changing, constantly getting destroyed, there has to be a basis, a karanam, an adhishthanam, on the strength of which the whole world is, continues, and disappears. Every single object in this world, whether tangible or intangible, appears, sustains, and disappears. Better word is becomes manifest, continues to be, and becomes unmanifest again. So the whole world is like that. Everything has to lead to a cause. Many times we refer to it as Atma. The Atma of something is what caused it. And our famous example of an Angavastram, the Atma of the Angavastram is the fabric. No fabric, no Angavastram. And the Atma of the fabric is the yarn. No yarn, no fabric. And so on. So in that kind of methodology, this Valli takes up the tree, Ashwatha tree, and shows us how this is like samsara, or the other way around, how samsara is like this Ashwatha tree. The Ashwatha tree we can understand. The Ashwatha tree also must have a karanam. That karanam may not be visible. In the case of a tree, in the Ashwatha tree, the karanam, the moolam is the root. The root is not available for perception. But we still know the root is. Without the root, there is no Ashwatha tree. In the same way, samsara is there. So many things are there in samsara. And this beautifully, especially Bhashyakara takes it up in one single sentence, which we will read. The nature of the Ashwatha tree and the nature of samsara. So the comparison is samsara vriksha, which is constantly changing, but can be felled, can be destroyed, eliminated. It is really non-self-existing. If we can reach out deep enough to the karanam, to the root, and understand its nature, we can eliminate samsara. And samsara is full of all kinds of things we don't want. All kinds of things. This samsara vriksha, in fact, the word vriksha, Bhashyakara will explain, vrishcha is the dhatu. To fell. That which can be felled. How? Asanga sastrena dridena chitva. We have read that. 15th chapter of Bhagavad Gita. Asanga sastrena dridena chitva. Whole samsara can be felt, meaning what? Can understand the nature of the samsara as being non-self-existent. Once for all. Therefore, vriksha. that which can be felt. Immediately you see the connection. There's another meaning for the word vriksha, which gives you shade. It's also called vriksha. Within the samsara, it does give you the equivalent of shade. But if you understand the nature of samsara, it is vriksha because it can be felled. So vriksha, prishchate iti, vriksha. Also from another root called vru, varane. That also means brunoti iti, that which provides shade is called vriksha. This samsara vriksha has many components other than the root. The root is called the moolam, the karanam. Everything else is karyam. Entire samsara, like the entire Ashwatha Vriksha, is a product, a karanam, a karyam. The karanam is not available for perception. The Jagat Karanam is also not available for perception. Therefore, we have multiple definitions of Ishvara. You ask 10 different people, you'll get 10 different descriptions. But that there is a Karanam, nobody disagrees. Therefore, we need Ishvara. Ishvara becomes a very important part of our life. The more Ishvara we have in our life, more possible for us to understand the nature of samsara. Not visible, not perceptible, not available for any perception. So what do? I create an image myself. My Ishvara is Bhagavan Krishna or Bhagavan Shiva or Jesus Christ. It doesn't matter. I create the image because I can relate to the image. But Ishvara as a concept is not readily available for perception. So I have to bank on the karya. The whole jagat is the karya. The way the jagat operates, how beautifully, starting from the cosmos, everything operates in such a fashion that there's no clashes. Recently, I saw on TV, they're talking about some meteorites coming to hit the earth sometime. So little blips are there. But look at the totality. Nothing is clashing with anything else. Who makes that happen? What intelligence makes that happen? Therefore, you infer presence of the Karanam. And then you take recourse to Shruti to understand the nature of this Karanam. What is Ishvara? What is Brahman? Is there a difference? Are they the same? What is the nature of that? What is the Swarupa of that? Once we get that far, it becomes possible to understand that the nature of this and the nature of I are the same. In the first several verses of Advaita Makaranda, we saw this, how beautifully he brought it out. They are the same nature. Swarupa is the same. Therefore, that one Jagat Karanam, Brahman, is I. And in this tree, Drishtanta, And the way these drishtantas are very beautiful. You see drishtanta, drashtanta at every step. There is this mula, the karanam. And from that mula, what is the first thing that becomes visible? What becomes perceptible? If you say the seed is mula, the roots are mula, they are not perceptible. But from there sprouts one ankura, a sprout. In the Jagat, what happens? There is Brahman, there is Maya, and the first perceptible is the equivalent of Ankura, Hiranyagarbha. The Samashti Sukshma, Linga Sharira, called Hiranyagarbha. That's it. After that, nothing. Prathamaja, firstborn. Then everything comes after that. Like from once the sprout comes, Ankura comes, then the whole thing, the whole tree, trunk, branches, bark, and everything that will be described here comes. Same thing with samsara. So introducing this mantra, Bhashyakara gives a one-line introduction. Can you put that up, Divyansh? The initial introduction by Bashyakara. Tula avadharanena eva.
Tula avadharanena
eva.
Mula avadharanam.
Mula avadharanam.
Vrikshasya.
Vrikshasya.
Yatha kriyate loke.
Yatha
Yatha
kriyate
kriyate
loke.
Evam samsara karya vriksha avadharanena.
Evam
Evam
samsara karya
samsara
vriksha
karya vriksha
avadharanena.
avadharanena.
Tanmulasya brahmanaha.
Tanmulasya
Tanmulasya
brahmanaha.
brahmanaha.
Swarupa avadhidharayishaya.
Swarupa avadhidhara
Yam Shashti Valli Arabhyate.
Iyam shashti valli arabhyate.
He gives the same analogy. He says, Tula avadharanena eva. Tula is karya. The Jagat is karya. Jagat in the samsara is a tula. By observing the tula, like observing a painting, Mula avadharanam vrikshasya. That the tree which is tula must have roots. Mula avadharanam vrikshasya. Vrikshasya mula avadharanam. You know that the mula, the karanam is there because you see the tree. Tula is a word, it's an interesting word. Tula actually refers to the karyam. Any karyam is called tula. One dhatu is tula dhatu, meaning to extract, niskarshane, from which something comes, something is extracted. So a karyam. There's another meaning for the word tula. It is this, I don't know how many have seen this tree cotton. There are cotton trees. When we were children in Delhi, there were cotton trees right in front of our house. What happened in the peak summer? They grow pods. And they're green to begin with, and then the pod dry up in peak summer, they begin to open up. And then in peak summer, it cracks open. Then you have all these beautiful fibers flying around. How is it made? There's a seed inside, and there are these fibers all around it. And they fly. They fly in the breeze, and they go elsewhere. That is the way they propagate the species. I remember in midsummer in Delhi, can you imagine 43, 44 degrees? If we did not go elsewhere, we used to stand under the tree and throw stones at it. I can't imagine these days doing something like that. And my mother used to say, why you think that sunlight is getting wasted, is it? You guys don't feel anything. As children, we didn't. Later, maybe we felt it, but at that time, when you're throwing stones at these cotton pods, they were just throwing stones and running and catching those things as they fly out. And then these pods break open, and you have this seed and a lot of very good fibers. These are. They're also called silk fibers. Very soft and very good cotton. And then, because these trees were there used to be people who come to the house. Everybody used to collect. We all used to collect a lot of this. Enough to make one rajai. That much we can easily collect. Leave alone a pillow. And then this fellow will come. I don't know what they were called, but we used to call them Dondai Wala. Because they're this huge bow-like thing. And they come home, we put all the cotton that we picked up elsewhere. They were tied to the ceiling. And this very strong, whatever that material was, the thing was tied there, they had a wooden hammer-like thing. They'd go bang, bang, bang on that in the cotton. And that would separate the seed from the fiber. Nowadays, we do it through machines. There are ginning machines. But those days, they used to do it. So the fellow will go walk through different colonies, because these trees were there everywhere in Delhi. And they charge a small fee for doing this. De-seeding. So you get all the fibers, very nicely fluffy. You stuff them into pillowcases or rajai. And the people will stitch the rajai for you. You give them cloth, and then they will stitch the rajai. So you make your own rajai or pillow or whatever. These cotton, this is also called tula. Now, the tula, the pod breaks open and these fibers fly away. You see the fibers. Now you know there is a tree. You don't see the tree. Even if you don't see the tree, you know there is a tree. So from that perspective also, you can say that this is an indicator of what is there as the mula, because you see the tula. Tula avadharanena eva. By knowing the karyam. Tula avadharanena eva mula avadharanam vrikshasya. Therefore, you know, you see the tree, see all the branches and leaves and everything else. Knowing that, you know there is a mula. There is a karanam, there is a root. I can't see the root, but I know it is there. Just like there in the same way, by seeing the entire Jagat, I know there is Jagat Karanam Brahma. Tula avadharanena eva mula avadharanam vrikshasya yatha. Just as you understand that there is a mula of the tree, the roots, the cause, the karanam for the tree, by seeing and knowing the tree, just like that, kriyate loke, in the samsara, this is our experience. So in the loke, we see this very easily. Evam eva, in the same way, samsara karya vriksha avadharanena. By understanding the samsara karya, which is the vriksha, samsara karya vriksha avadharanena. By seeing the karya in the samsara, the vriksha equivalent in the samsara, all the varieties, just like you see the varieties in the tree, here also see all the varieties. They're also living, non-living things, small things, big things. Karma, karma phala, everything is there. Everything there in samsara also. By seeing all this, evam samsara karya vriksha avadharanena, by understanding the samsara vriksha, because I can see that, I can experience that, I can perceive that, tan moolasya, swarupa avadhidharayishaya, for understanding that moola of that. And what is that moola? Brahmanaha. That karanam for the entire jagat, which is dependent existence and is dependent on the moola, which is Brahmanaha. Tan moolasya Brahmanaha Shashti Swarupa Avadhidharayishaya, for knowing the nature of its moolam, the Brahman, Iyam Shashti Valli Arabhyate. This sixth Valli is begun. So one more way of trying to understand the Swarupa of Brahman. Shruti is very kind, recognizes that we don't easily grasp this. So tells us in so many different ways. It's a beautiful imagery. We will see this. In this imagery, Bhashyakara writes wonderful Bhashyam. There is one compound sentence in this, which is 1 page long. One single sentence. All of it talking about the nature of the tree as the nature of samsara. So the tree, the Ashwatha tree, he is given so many adjectives, which is developed himself. You know, Sanskrit language is a beautiful language from that perspective. You can develop your own compounds. Even as you write, you probably can develop the compounds. In other languages, we have preset adjectives. You pick and place the objective. You create the adjectives. We will see that very beautifully is develop that. You read the Moolam. Moolam here. Moolam is also the text is also called Moolam. Urdhva Moolo Vakshakaha.
ऊर्ध्वमूलो
ऊर्ध्वमूलोऽवाक्शाकः
Eshoshvatat Sanatanaha.
एषोऽश्वत्थसनातनः
Tadeva Shukram Tad Brahma.
तदेव
तदेव
शुक्रं
शुक्रं
तद्ब्रह्म
तद्ब्रह्म
Tadevamritamuchyate.
तदेवामृतमुच्यते
एवामृतमुच्यते
Tasmin Lokashrita Sarve.
तस्मिन्
तस्मिन् लोकाश्रिता
लोकाश्रिताः
सर्वे
Tadunatyeti Kashana.
तदुनात्येति
तदुनात्येति
कश्चन
Etad Vaitat.
एतद्वैतत्
See that Etad Vaidatu, you know it's a description of Atma Brahman. That which you asked for, hey Nachiketa. Very first word brings back memories from somewhere else we read. Urdhvamula. It is taken from here only. A lot of this Bhagavad Gita takes it from this particular Upanishad. There he says Urdhvamula Adashakaha. But the original Shruti says Urdhvamula Avakshakaha. Meaning is the same. The literal meaning of Urdhvamula is that the moola is above. What is the moola for the tree? Roots. So the immediate literal meaning gives you an image where the tree is upside down, the roots are above. That's not the way to interpret it. Urdhvam, the literal meaning is above, but it also means superior. Here in this case, not accessible to any senses, not contained in time or space, therefore not available for perception. That moola, that root, urdhvam, that which is not within the time-space, and that is all we know. Whatever within time-space is all we know. This moolam is urdhvam. And the opposite of it is avak shaka, all the branches and everything else that is there. The branches, the leaves, the twigs, everything else, the flowers, the fruits, is avak. Literally meaning below. Adashakaha. It's not literally below, it is perceptible. It is lower. Lower in terms of superior lower, not lower in terms of physical lower. Is this tree Ashwatha tree? There are two words here, Esha Ashwatha Sanatanaha. There are two words which look like opposites to describe the same tree. Ashwatha is a ficus tree. There are different ficus trees. Some have adventitious roots, some don't. I think this in Tamil is called Alamaram. That is the tree he's talking about. Called in English, they call it Punya Ashwatha. Ficus religiosa. The English term for it. This Sanatanaha. Again, literal meaning of Sanatana is what? Eternal. Unchanging. But here, it's a relative Sanatana. Means very old. These ficus trees live for several hundred years. Every time I see our development sacrificing one of these trees, it's a sad thing. You know, in Bangalore, we used to go to Hosur. We had some customers there, clients there. And that route was untraveled. Nobody used to go there. Nowadays, it is choked. It is so choked that going from Coimbatore to Bangalore, we cover the distance up to that point in 2.5 hours. Then from there to go to Whitefield, which is where we wanted to go, another 2.5 hours, 3 hours, 4 hours. But not like that. At that time, it was broken single road. But on both sides of the road, there were huge ficus trees. You know, the girth of the trunk would be several tens of meters. Huge. And as time passed, we used to go there very regularly. We started those trees being felled. Fortunately, modern technology gives us electric saws. They cut the whole thing out. Sad. We don't bother rebuild. We have in our system 5 yajnas. One of them is called Bhuta Yajna. Bhuta Yajna refers to all the bhutas, all the trees, plants, and all of the bhutas, environment, water, air, etc. We are supposed to work with them. And those laws that we understand are, if you have to cut a tree because of development, because population is increasing, we need more space, whatever, you plant and maintain at least 10 more trees. So we don't do that. We just cut them out. Our forest cover in the world has gone down so badly. Satellite photos show Bangalore. I saw satellite imagery in the 60s and in the 2000s. You could see how much of the green cover has gone. Similarly, lakes, all part of the Bhuta Yajna. We have become our own destructors. So this Ashwatha Sanatana means relatively very old. Ashwatha itself has a meaning. I think in one of the other classes I spoke about it. Shvaha is tomorrow. Ashvaha is the opposite of that. That which is not in the same way tomorrow, it changes. Ashwatha. What is today is not tomorrow. What you see of distant objects, they also keep changing. If you see a star today at night, what you're seeing is the star as it was some time ago. The time it takes for light to travel from there to you. In purely theoretical terms, even when you're talking to somebody, the person who is seeing is not the person at that instant. It is the person who was there a fraction earlier. It's finite distance, but very small, finite time. Ashwataha Sanatana. This ficus tree, which is very long living, is very, very old. The tree that he is describing, therefore, has a huge trunk, solid roots, we can infer, and has adventitious roots, secondary roots. Harsha Vidyalaya, our signage, has a tree, and it has adventitious roots coming down. It's only a signage, so it doesn't grow. But normally what happens, these adventitious roots go down, grab this thing and become further roots. And when the original roots die, they still have roots. And then they keep spreading. I've been told in Calcutta, there is a tree which spreads over several square kilometers, that big. I've not seen it myself, but I'm told that such a tree is there. Urdhva Molo Avakshakaha Eshaha Ashwataha Sanatanaha. We'll take this tree, Ashwatha tree, as the Drishtanta for Samsara Drashtanta. That Mula, Tadeva Shukram Tad Brahma. That Moolam is, when you compare that Moolam in the tree, is the root. But when you look at the Samsara, it is Shukram. Tad Brahma. It is Brahma. Just we read this before. I think in this chapter only. Yeah. Esha Supteshu Jagarti Kamam Kamam Purusho Nirmimanah Tadeva Shukram Tad Brahma Tadeva Amritam Uchyate. It is the same sentence is there. That Brahman is consciousness. Tadeva Shukram Tad Brahma Tad eva amritam uchyate. That is called immortal, in which the entire loka is Shruta. The ashraya for the adhishthanam for the entire loka is that Brahman. Tasmin lokaha Shruta sarve. There can be nothing higher than that. Tad u natyeti kashana. There is nothing higher than that. Nothing exceeds that. That, hey Nachiketa, is the nature of what you want him to know. Etad vaitat. We will continue tomorrow. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya